All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to something a little bit in the new that I'm calling Ask TJ. Um, on my most recent non-D&D deep dive of a video where I talked about campaign settings, one of you wonderful, lovely people asked a bunch of questions about some of the stuff I covered in there. And instead of just replying in an extremely long comment, I figured it would be easier for me and more beneficial to everyone else if I actually answered them in a video. Going forward, if I get enough questions from people on videos, I may do more kind of Q&A style videos like this. They don't have to be about D&D, but it seems to be where this channel finds its place. So yeah. Let's answer his questions. All right. So Simon Ash here asked a ton of different questions. But they were kind of around three basic topics. They had stuff about my Castlevania games that I ran. There was stuff about the Eberron contest and all the stuff that went into having Eberron become an official D&D setting. And then stuff about how I design my own campaign worlds and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go right in order as it was in the comment and start with my Castlevania games. To give anyone a little bit of a background, if you missed that part of the video, years ago now, I actually did a I organized and ran two 48-hour D&D live streams for Extra Life. I did them for 2 years. I did one 1 year and then one then the next, and we raised something like $7,500 or something like that. It was a big deal for me. And yeah, we literally played D&D for 48 hours straight in shifts. Like I ran for most of them. I would run generally around like to 12 hours worth of games, so split up into like to 2 or 3 shifts. And then I had a bunch of other people that they all ran either 4 or 8 hour games, and it was a huge amount of fun and a ton of work. But each year, I would do a Castlevania game, and basically what I would do is I would pick a Castlevania video game. And basically make a D&D version using that plot. So the first year I did Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, the one that everybody hates. It is by far the least liked Castlevania, and it's because it did something really ahead of its time, whereas most Castlevanias up until Symphony of the Night are just action platformers where you get to the castle, you go through, you kill things with your whip, you fight a bunch of bosses, you eventually get to Dracula, and you kill him. That's how it works. Castlevania 2 was actually an RPG adventure game with action elements. So you still went around killing things, but you started in a town. And the whole plot of it was as Dracula was dying when Simon Belmont killed him in the first game, he cursed Simon Belmont and the entirety of the land to where he basically kind of tied his own resurrection to Simon. If Simon died, then Dracula would be reborn. And as long as the curse was on, the lands themselves would be plagued by monsters and things like, crops wouldn't grow, and like it was just a really, really bad situation. The only way for Simon to cure himself of this curse would be to collect the pieces of Dracula, resurrect him, and kill him again. I know it doesn't make a ton of sense, but that's what it was. So in the game, you actually have to walk around, you have to talk to villagers, most of which give you useless information, and even the useful information that you get is super cryptic and hard to understand. The difficulty itself isn't horrendous, but it was not an easy game by any means. And it had a day-night system. When it was in the nighttime, monsters would be significantly stronger. It had a super cool soundtrack and everything. Bloody Tears is like the best song ever. That originated there. So anyway, I purposefully chose the least favorite Castlevania game, just so that there was a chance that my players, even if they were big Castlevania fans, wouldn't actually know the plot. And if I remember correctly, again, this is going back years and years ago. I didn't actually list it as a Castlevania game. I think I listed it as a Ravenloft game to hide the fact that I was making Castlevania. And yeah, a few of the questions specifically that Simon asked were how you design the maps for the Castlevania campaign. I literally took the map from the instruction manual of Castlevania 2. That was my map of Barovia. Yeah, it was remarkably simple. Dracula was Strahd. I went through my monster manual and just looked for really creepy enemies to throw at people. And then the whole plot of Castlevania 2 is they had to go to these different mansions to each one would have a different part in it. And so that's what I did. They went to these different mansions and they fought through monsters. And to be perfectly honest, I can't even remember the first year one that well, because my memory is really, really bad from meds and other things. But if I remember correctly, I think they got like 3 or 4 of the 5, and it was getting close to the end of the game, and so I just kind of fast forwarded to the Dracula fight, and yeah, they fought Strahd effectively, for the life of me, I can't remember the creatures I used or anything like that for the first year. The second year, I went a lot more elaborate. First things first, it was an 8-hour long game, whereas I think the first year it was just a 4-hour long game. So I did an actual 8-hour long session that we live streamed. And I had... it was still Ravenloft. I didn't call it a Castlevania game, but this one was based on a combination of Castlevania Curse of Darkness, which is a PS2 game, which is a sequel to Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, which is a weird title for Castlevania 3, because it wasn't about the curse that Simon just killed. It was actually a prequel, and you played as Trevor, who was Simon's ancestor, and yeah, it was confusing to be honest. But Yeah. So this is started with that idea of it's going to be based on Castlevania 3, and I actually had the players. I had one-on-one conversations with the players to help design their characters, and I actually created some special abilities to kind of reflect the Castlevania inspiration. One person got the ability to Devil Forge, which was a thing in Curse of the Darkness that I loved. They basically got pets, and they got more pets as they went along, and they could use the pets to fight and stuff like that, and that was fun. Another one, I think I gave another one the Vampire Killer, and I designed a Vampire Killer. None of this stuff. I'm sure if I could find the emails from 4 years ago or something, I might be able to find some of the design, but I didn't really write it, or I did write it down, but I have no idea where it went. It was at least a computer ago. It might have been to the 2 computers ago, because it might have been right at the tail end of one of my computer's life spans. So yeah, I have no idea where this stuff was, but yeah, I gave someone the Vampire Killer, and it got more powerful as they went along, and someone got the ability to forge the devils, and the final thing, because a big part of Castlevania 3 was you could actually switch between different characters after you unlocked them. So what would happen in the game is if you had these multiple branching paths you could take, and if you took the right paths, you could unlock 3 additional playable characters that I think you'd hit select, and you would just switch to a new character. The characters were the main character was Trevor Belmont, who's your standard, I have a whip and sub weapons and all that. Grant Dynasty was the first one you could unlock. He was a thief that could climb on walls and throw daggers, I think. Sifa Beneldes was the second one. She had magic she could use. And was super slow, but if I remember correctly, if you hit things and killed them with her stick, which had 0 range, I think you could regain hit points. So she was useful for that. And then the third character was Alucard, who, unlike Symphony of the Night, where he had a sword and all these other weapons, he had balls that he had attacked with. He had magic balls. He'd throw his balls, and they'd explode. So he had magic exploding balls that he'd throw in people's faces. So if you ever got Alucard's balls in your face, you would explode. And he could also turn into a bat. So that was a really integral part of Castlevania 3, and it was one of the reasons why it is the most popular of the Nintendo Castlevanias, and it's one of the more popular Castlevania games in general. So I wanted that to be a part of this. So throughout the game, I again used effectively the map from Castlevania 3. I just found a map. I think it was from a player's guide online, and I used that as the map. I never showed the players because I did everything to the theater of the mind at that point. I really didn't use battle maps online. I used battle maps sometimes at the table when I ran in person, but I didn't use them online. I just did all the theater of the mind. And so, yeah, I would walk them through, and I would give them choices. Do you want to go to the clock tower, or do you want to go through this swamp? Do you want to go here? And when they got to certain areas, they would fight a creature that if they beat it, one of the players would get the ability to basically transform into this other character and use their stats. And I think I built character sheets for each one of the extra characters, so everyone was able to because I think I'm trying to remember. I think I had 4 I think I had 4 or 5 players. So one person got devil forging; they didn't get to change into other characters. One person got the vampire killer, and I don't think they could transform. And then everyone else got a form they could change into. And yeah, that one I remember a little bit better, mostly because it was the first time I actually got to work with Dale Kingsmill. If you've never heard of her before, you've been living under a rock, and you need to fix that because she's amazing. She makes mythological content, and she was one of the Geek and Sundry vloggers. Um, and nowadays she makes a ton of D&D related content. So her channel is Monarch's Factory. You should check it out because their stuff's amazing. And if you've been watching my did a D&D deep dives for a few months, I did an entire series on her Heroes and Villains of the Theros supplement. So yeah, she's phenomenal. But that was the first time I got to work with her. I think I reached out to her and said, "Hey, I'm doing this charity thing. I know you're in Australia and time zones are just screwed up, but if you'd be willing to do this, I think it'd be a lot of fun." And she said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And yeah, so I got to have Dale as one of my players. I cannot for the life of me remember what character she played. If you guys will want, go over to Monarch's Factory, and or to tweet her on Twitter, and ask her what if she still has the character from my 8-hour Ravenloft game for Extra Life. She may. I have no idea. She seems significantly more significantly more put together than I am, and more organized. So it's possible she may still have that stuff. So as far as any of the resources, they exist somewhere. I'm sure. It's very possible they're on a hard drive that is not currently connected to power. And if not, they may exist in an email chain somewhere that may or may not have been deleted. Again, we're going back like 4 years for this stuff. So resources I don't really have. But yeah, I literally just, I took the plot and changed a few things to make it hard to kind of pick it out that, oh my God, we're playing Castlevania 3. So I could surprise them. I do remember in the first city that they started in, I had they decided to go into a church, and meet with the cleric that are there. And the church itself I described as really creepy and run down, and it had like stuff hanging down, like it was super dilapidated. It had like drop cloths and stuff like that hanging all around, so it was really creepy. And they came in and they to talk to this priest. And the priest knew, if I remember correctly, the priest knew who they were. It's like, oh, it's so great that you guys are here. I'm so happy that you finally could come. You've been prophesized, which made them like, oh, cool. We are the chosen ones. That's not too bad. And as it kept going, the priest just kept getting creepier and creepier. And the room just kept getting more and more foreboding, and then the like hanging cloths and stuff like that started getting heavier and heavier, and eventually it turned into I can't remember what his cookout. It's either I think it's either a chain demon or a hook demon. I think it's a chain demon. But yeah, there are these, demon or chain devil. I think that's what it is. Anyway, there are these devil or demon. They're infernal. That use chains and stuff, and I had like the entire church became part of the encounter because all those drop cloths turned into chains that the chain devil would use to like constrict them and attack them. And again, this was literally the first choice that they made. It was like, okay, what are we supposed to do? Well, you're in the town. you know where Ravenloft is, but you guys aren't going to be able to beat Strahd as you are. You're going to need to, bulk up, and there may be magic items around that some of the townspeople know. And they went, "Oh, let's go to the church," which I wasn't expecting, and I just on the fly I went, "Oh, this will be fun." And so yeah, I just on the fly I would write this stuff, and it turned out really really well. We had a ton of fun. I know I had what's her name? Camilla is a real famous Castlevania boss. She shows up in a bunch of the games. I had her as I think a succubus. I had another creature in there that I can't remember. I think I'm relatively certain I reskinned a mind flayer for one of the encounters, which is really fun because mind flayers are incredibly dangerous creatures to fight in D&D, and they're also super scary just physically. Like when you describe them, it scares people, and so players will fight very defensively and be very careful, especially if they know what a mind flayer can do. However, if you skin it as something else where it doesn't look as threatening and it doesn't set off those alarm bells, they will make decisions they wouldn't make if they were fighting a mind flayer. Which again, the only thing I would change is the visual description. They had the exact same abilities. I would just flavor them differently. Like instead of trying to suck their brain out through the back of their head, he was biting them in the neck and draining their blood. So it was still a vampire. But it had all the abilities of a mind flayer. And yeah, it went super well. But yeah, that's what I kind of would do. Is I'm a very improvisational DM. I do a lot of pre-writing to set the ground layer. Basically, I design the world, and I have stuff going on in the world that's going to happen. Whether these guys intervene or not, and if they intervene, things change, and if they don't, things go the way they were going to go. And that lets me really kind of live in the moment with the players and just react to whatever choices they make. And that's kind of how I ran these Castlevania games. Was I literally went, okay, this is the plot. This is what the bad guys will want to do. If the players literally do nothing for 8 hours, but like open it to the tavern, the villains will get everything that they want. And if they succeed in that, then depending on what they did do, things will change. So yeah, so that's all the Castlevania game. Like I said, my if you want to adapt a video game or a book or something into the loose story of like a campaign or adventure, these were one shots, so they were a little bit easier. I didn't have to worry about giving them things that were too powerful or something that would shoot me in the butt 12 sessions later. This was just a one-shot thing. So it's a little more complicated if you want to how a campaign around it. But literally what I tend to do is I look for okay, what is the what is the world? If you already have an established world with like a map in that makes things a lot easier. What is the plot? Basically, what's the plot of the video game? And I just take the main character out and go, okay, if they didn't intervene anywhere, what would happen? And just kind of go from there. So if that's what you want to do, go for it. The next questions are about the Eberron contest. I actually don't have a ton of knowledge about the Eberron contest. As much as it happened in 2002, As much as I was aware of D&D in 2002, I wasn't actually playing. I had like one or two D&D video games I played at that point. And I think at that particular point in my life, my family had just gotten out of a period in our lives where they had decided that all magic was evil and of the devil. So anything that said the word magic, I wasn't allowed to play. I wasn't allowed to associate with anything like that. So D&D was off limits for me at that point. So I actually didn't know anything about it when it happened. And now that we're going 18 years later, it is almost impossible to find the original and announcements. I would assume they were announced in like the Dungeon magazine or the Dragon magazine. I have no idea what issue that would be, or even if I could find the old issues. I did find an interview that happened, I think, in 2004. So this was after the contest and when they were actually releasing the campaign setting. Because it took a while to go from the contest to actually releasing the book. And the interview was between Keith Baker, or the interviewer was Michael Ryan, and he interviewed Keith Baker, Bill Slavicsek, and James Wyatt. I don't know who Bill is, but Keith is the guy that designed Eberron, and James Wyatt still works for D&D. So they described the process a little bit in here. Apparently, there was like 11,000 submissions that came in, and what they were was you had to write a one-page description of your campaign setting, the themes, stuff like that. As far as I can tell, they don't really go into too much detail. They narrowed the 11,000 down to 120, and then narrowed that down to it was supposed to be 10. I think they had 11 according to this. And they had those 11 people actually send them a 10-page write-up of their campaign setting. Again, they didn't actually describe what was in these write-ups, but if I had to guess, it was go into more detail about this as a setting. Tell us about some major cities, tell us about the history, all that stuff. And then they narrowed that down to 3 submissions. And then I think the 3 finalists had to write 125-page campaign Bibles. Which again, campaign Bible is just like I'm not going to pull that out because my book's so full. It's just like the Tal'Dorei campaign setting or something like that, where literally it lists your cosmology. It'll generally have like a map, and it'll show the major cities and give little details about them and all this stuff. So yeah, the 3 finalists had to make 125-page campaign Bibles, which is the size of a decent D&D book. Like I would assume the Tal'Dorei campaign setting is around that amount. So it's not an easy thing. And then finally they chose Eberron because they liked it. And it's a really good setting. Very different from a lot of others. So that's is really all I could find out about it. Like it is remarkably impressive how little information exists about the contest itself. I didn't do an extensive amount of research or anything like that, but I literally could not find anything on it after a few Google searches. And my Google foo is good. I have found some very, very crazy stuff that people have tried to hide away on the internet really, really hard. Not going to go into details about that stuff, but I'm good at finding stuff on the internet, and I found nothing except this article and a few forum posts asking about what happened to the other 11,000 submissions, and that's it. So yeah, there's just not a lot of info on it. The specific questions Simon asked were, what were the criteria? I have no idea. Like I said, I know the first submission was a page, the second submission was 10 pages, the third submission was 125 pages. And they did say that their mindset for it was the same but different, was their mantra. This needed to be D&D, but it needed to be different as well. And that was the reason they chose Eberron, because it oozed Dungeons and Dragons. It was obvious that this was a Dungeons and Dragons setting, but there was so much more. Because of how it was built, you could tell so many different kinds of stories. You could tell the kind of high fantasy stories that Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance especially were known for. You could tell kind of gritty crime stories set in one of the cities. You could tell war stories if you set it during the last war. There was just so much that you could do with it, and that's what they liked about it. What did a campaign setting need to be considered a campaign setting? Again, no idea. It doesn't exist. Like I said, I'm assuming there was an article or an ad in Dragon Magazine. But for the life of me, I could not tell you where to find that ad. I couldn't find anything about it other than this interview that happened 2 years later. And then, do you think anything additional should have been required? Something you include in yours which just wasn't a thing back then. Again, since I don't know what they were required, I don't actually know. However, their next Simon's next set of questions is actually about designing a campaign setting. And this kind of gels really well into that. So I'll just kind of go into the next set of questions. The next word, do you have any tools for how you create your settings? Like the World Factbook or the social, political, economic, religious, and military considerations? Thank you, Monarchs Factory. As far as to the tools that I use, I don't have any preset, to tools that I use to help me make campaign settings. The things that I find most useful when designing my own, I like having a map. As weird as this may sound, maps are really, really useful in building a world, simply because you can kind of see how the world interacts with each other based on what physical interaction is available. Like the first campaign setting I designed was a Kingdom of the Kale Isles, which was just this small part of a much larger world. And I purposefully only designed this very small part. But the way I did it, I literally sat down at a table with some blank drawing paper, and I drew out a set of islands. I had one really big island, and then a bunch of smaller ones, and then like little archipelagos and stuff like that. And I slowly but surely started going, okay, well, this is where the Eladrin Empire is going to be, and this is where this is going to be. And I would just place the things in there and go from there. And that happened well before I actually ran the campaign on the line. It was a little adventure I developed for a tabletop gaming group I used to host. After that, I kind of look at I look at government, I look at economics, and I look at government and economics for me are two big driving forces. Partially because I have a degree in marketing management and economics. I think I took 3 or 4 economics courses. I aced all of them. I got higher scores than some of my professors in those courses because I love economics. It's a fascinating subject. When you understand economics, you can actually predict a lot of behavior on a large scale. You can predict market trends, and it's really fascinating. The smaller you look at it through the lens of economics, the less accurate it's going to be. Simply because too many variables come when you're looking at an individual versus when you're looking at a large grouping of people. A lot of the individuality and factors and basically just kind of bleeds out, and they start making majority decisions and the things like that, and that's significantly easier to predict than it is even individual choices. It's also significantly easier to analyze, seen as you can tell what factors are affecting a group much easier than you can what factors are affecting a single individual. So anyway, yeah, I look at government, I look at economics, and that's where I will start when building a campaign setting. Is like, okay, what kind of society do I want this to be? Do I want a benevolent government? Do I want an oppressive government? Do I want a democracy, a monarchy? One of my absolute favorite things to do is just go and look up the different kinds of governments, because they all will. Any society that's ruled by a specific type of government is going to hold different things as important. Always. When you have, like, an oligarchy is going to be based on power, which a lot of times is related to money. So oligarchies a lot of times have a lot of economic ideas that are very important to them. Whoever has the most money. On the flip side, if you're doing something like a theocracy, depending on the theology, theocracies can be incredibly oppressive, and they specifically will use a lack of understanding of the theology as a way to control the masses. You saw this in a lot of religious run groups. Like when you look at how the is it the Byzantine? Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But when you but basically when you have a theocracy where the idea is you're not following rules because they're good for you, you're following or you're not following rules because, you know, these are the rules that you've been given. You're following the rules because they are divine commandments that breaking them can curse you to eternal, you know, suffering and hell. The better people understand the rules, the less control you have over them. The less they understand the rules, the more control you have over them. That's why a lot of times in fictions, theocracies in general are almost universally bad. And they don't have to be they don't have to be religious as much as they just have to be kind of controlling. Like, these are the ideas that we could give you. I've seen a lot of kind of cyberpunk thing where you have a theocracy running it that is quote unquote science based, where you still have commandments and things like that, but instead of invoking a deity, they invoke either a really, really intelligence person or the idea of science in general, and then they keep the education to a minimum for the masses so that they can't understand the higher stuff, and then they just tell them, well, science says that this. So yeah. So that's where I start, is I will pick a government, and I will pick an economy. Because any government in the world can be toppled by money. And a lot of them do. A lot of uprisings are all about money. And a lot of regime changes are all about money, even if that's not what they're... and this is something I found out when I took, I think it was AP U.S. History, because we used a British book on U.S. history instead of an American-made book. And holy crap, is history, when it's told by somebody else, very, very different. Things like all the wars that we fought over here, like the French and Indian War, the Revolutionary War, they were all bleed over from European wars. Like every single one of them, we were pawns in a European war, and it was just we were fighting by proxy. That's all it was. And you never hear about that stuff over here. And things like George Washington was not a great general. He lost, I think he lost more than he won. He just happened to win the right battles and got lucky a few times. Like, is it Charleston? Where General Cornwallis had to surrender? I think that's what it is. Anyway, the big thing that's considered like the big kind of turning point in the end of the Revolutionary War. The only reason Washington won that fight was the British Navy is the most powerful navy in the world at that time. They controlled every ocean, except for a week. And it just so happened that during that week, the American Army pushed Cornwallis back to his boats, and he couldn't get reinforcements, and he couldn't retreat because the French had control over that part of the ocean that week. It's the only reason we won. It's the only reason we're not speaking with British accents, and it's the only reason we don't have the Queen on our money. It was because that particular week the French controlled that part. That's all it was. And it wasn't this huge tactical the thing. Things just lined up. Yeah, the French were our allies, and that's what they wanted to happen. But it was mostly a stroke of luck that it happened on that particular time. So, yes, going back to this, economics is a big thing, and I will generally think about how does a city run, and then how do cities interact with each other. And a lot of times I will look at the low class kind of serf class. How do they make a living, and how does that living feed into the richer people's pockets? Because everyone working at the base level is making money for themselves, but is also making money for the next level up, and then the next level up makes money for the next level up, and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of things I look at, because that's how I view the world. If someone talks about how evil a corporation is or something like that, the first thing I look into is their financials and their business practices and the things like that, and try and figure out exactly what they're doing. Because a lot of times when people get mad about stuff like that, it's literally they have no idea what's going on. They've just taken one fact completely out of context and decided to get super angry about it. And once you actually understand the entire process, you can get angry about the right things, and you can invoke meaningful change. But if you don't understand why they work the way they do in the first place, and you just decide, well, it's because they're evil people, you're just wasting your time. So other question: do you ever did it develop the history of the region, its past, going back generations or eons, like most of Dennis Diak's worlds? Um, I do create histories to a point. And this I actually I will credit uh, the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time as kind of inspiring this. And I guess you could say Link to the Past to two, because they both had the Hyrule origin story as part of the game. And A Link to the Past, if you wait in the title screen long enough, it actually gives you a history, and then part of the plot of Ocarina of Time is you actually get cutscenes that explain the creation of the world. Um, and I've done enough study into other settings. Like, I know pretty well. I know the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. I know the history and how everything came to be. Trying to think of other settings I know really well. I know Ravenloft really well, and how that, turned into something. So when I create a campaign setting, I do have a history. I know what created the world. Oh, that's the other one. World of Warcraft. I know their history super well. I know exactly how the world was created. I know about the Titans and the old gods and all this stuff. I find this stuff fascinating, and how it relates to the story thousands of years later. So I do kind of come up with, okay, where did this world come from? Where did the gods come from? One of these days, I'm gonna do just a history of my world, because I think one of my campaigns actually touched on the actual history of the world, or the history of the universe, really. And that's it. And they didn't care, because at that point they were more worried about going back to their family and ending the campaign in a really violent, horrible way. So yeah, I may just for my own sanity, I may create a video just talking about, hey, this is the beginning of my world and why it works the way that it does. But part of the history is I'll go, okay, these are some major conflicts that have influenced it today. I don't have a massive like date system or anything like that. But I do have. I think it's important for a campaign to be able to reference former wars or conflicts or something in the past, just because it adds weight to the present. Going, oh my God, this is a relic from the Chosen Wars, or this is a relic from the Elemental Wars, or something like that. Like I really enjoy stuff like that. So, yes. And then, have you noticed any commonalities that all the best settings share? Probably the most important thing is the settings feel real. And by real, I mean they focus and they little stuff exists. In a one-shot adventure like those Castlevania things, I didn't really have to worry about the economics of how these little cities and villages and that supported themselves. Like, were they supported by farmers? Did they mine and sell that? I didn't have to worry about that, because people weren't really going to live in that world for more than 8 hours. But for a campaign setting, you need to be able to exist in that world for an extended period of time. So all the good campaign settings have things that aren't plot hooks, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Things like I'm completely drawing a blank now. In Waterdeep, one of the areas, I cannot for the life of me remember what it's called, but in the upper city in Waterdeep, in the upper city in Baldur's Gate, sorry, there's an area that is just a giant marketplace. Can you fit that into a plot hook? Yeah, if you play the Murder in Baldur's Gate adventure, that's actually a location of some big stuff. But it could just as easily have been a town square or something like that. But the actual marketplace exists. And those are the kind of things that make a world feel real. It's one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of maps. Because if you make a map of a city, and your city is a church, an adventuring guild, a tavern, and a blacksmith where you can buy weapons. Well, the town doesn't look right. So you add in all these other buildings to make it look right. And whether or not you label them now or you label them later, just having extra unmarked buildings on a map changes the things. These can be people's homes. These can be other shops that are really necessary for the world to just exist. It's probably not going to happen that you're going to need to hire a barber for your players. It's just not something they think about often. But for a town, a barber was a really important position. It could style hair. They also acted as like a surgeon and things like that. So those are the things. And what kind of like non-essential buildings you add to do it can influence how the world works. So those are the things. The best settings always have, I guess, what I would call non-essential or non-plot hook things. And you can turn them into plot hooks, sure, but the world should feel livable. Like if your players don't want to go out and kill, goblins, the world should exist in a way that you could go and start your own tavern, or you could buy a farm and go full on harvest moon, or I guess Stardew Valley is the new reference. And those are the things that I tend to see most of the best settings all have is they take the time to have enough there that the world can exist without adventures. I guess what it is. Because before you start adding adventures, the world should still exist. So yeah. Yeah, that's everything. This turned a little bit longer than I was suspecting. If you guys found any of this stuff interesting, feel free to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you want more stuff. In the comments below, would you guys be interested in hearing a history of my personal campaign setting? Like from creation of the world, where the gods came from, what the Chosen Wars were stuff like that. If you are interested in that stuff, let me know in the comments down below. Do you have any other questions for me for another, Ask the TJ thing? I'm more than happy to tackle more topics like this where they're more informational. If you have questions on specific things for running games and that, like advice, I'm open to that stuff too. Ask any cool questions you want. I like doing Q&A type stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right. Bye bye.